Well, good morning, folks. This is Billy Trout with the Tennessee Department of Revenue's Taxpayer Education Division. And on behalf of our Commissioner, David Geragano, and our staff, who some of us have joined us with us today, I just want to welcome you to today's presentation of a new business workshop. We have a small group today, which is a good thing for you because we'll be able to let you guys interact with us probably even a little more than we would if we had a larger group. So we're glad that you're with us today. We're going to record this and put this on our website later on. Katie will tell you more about that, as well as copies of these slides. They'll be available as well a little later too. So we just wanted to welcome you. And you see the two fine folks on screen here, Katie Julian. You'll notice that she's a lady. There she is. And then we have Lance Estes, who is the king of the world in Knoxville, Tennessee, of all things tax for the state of Tennessee. So you're very lucky to have Lance here with you today too. So between all of us, we're glad that we can provide this service for you, and glad that you are operating a new business in our state, and we appreciate that too. Also with us today is Dan Vinson, our Assistant Director in Taxpayer Services, and he will he'll be jumping in and helping us and answering some of your questions as well in the chat. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn that over, everything's over to Katie, and let her get going on a few housekeeping things before we get going. Katie?
All right. Cool. Thank you, Billy. And excited to have Lance with us today. He is the king of all things tax in Knoxville. Actually, in East Tennessee, I was at a tax workshop at ETSU a couple months ago, and all the people that were there said, they said, we know Lance. We visit Lance in Knoxville all the time, and they love Lance. So happy to have you with us, Lance. Again, thanks for joining us today. All of the people joining, we have a small group. You're probably either a new business that has already started and you're wanting to attend this workshop to make sure you've dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's, or maybe you're thinking about starting a business and want to make sure from the get-go that you're doing everything right from a tax perspective. Hopefully we'll be able to answer a lot of your questions and take some guesswork out of that for you. We might have some tax professionals on here that are attending in order to be able to better guide their customers. Welcome to you all, though. Like Billy said, we are going to be posting a PDF of this presentation and a video of it later today, or maybe tomorrow morning, depends on when the video is ready. So come back to the same place where you registered for this workshop. It's tn.gov/revenue. Click on taxpayer education and then new business workshops. So it's going to be a long morning. We're going to be talking to you from 8:30 to 11:30 Central Time. We're going to have a couple of 5-minute breaks when they happen kind of naturally with the topic changes. You see in red here in the middle of your screen of this slide, chat will be open during our Q&A segments. Like Billy said, we went ahead and opened a chat up. We usually have a much larger group for this. So since we've got a smaller group, we're going to leave chat open. Just keep in mind, I'll tell you here in a minute how we're going to be structuring things, but we're not really going to get to a lot of the details of tax accounts till around the middle of today's workshop. So if you've got questions about that, you may want to hold off until we get to that segment. We have a lot of links in this presentation. When you do get the PDF later today or tomorrow, when you check that out, there'll be live hyperlinks to manual pages and website, web pages. Those are subject to change. So if you are watching a video of this not in January 2024 in a later date, we update our manuals, we update our website, so some of those links can change. All right, enough of that housekeeping stuff. We'll go ahead and get started here. As I said, the way we're going to structure things today, first we're going to have a segment about setting up your business and making sure that everything is set up right to be able to get started. Then we're going to have a segment about the Tennessee taxes that are applicable to most businesses. We're not going to go over every single state tax account. There's too many of them and they don't all apply to everyone. So we'll talk about the main ones, tax law and requirements. Then we'll probably have another little break and then finish out the morning with a segment on where to find help and the various resources that we have on our website and also elsewhere. So We'll go ahead and dive into setting up your business now. We have a new web page that you can get to from tn.gov/revenue that is all about setting up a new business. And that's what we're going to kind of walk through. And I'm going to take a detour here for just a minute and show you where that is. Excuse me. Share web browser. Move screens here. Hold on. Hopefully you can see my browser. I'm on tn.gov/revenue here, where I'm going to be taking you, and the topic we're going to be discussing here for the next little bit is on the for businesses section. So I've scrolled down to the for businesses tile. And for new businesses, if you're a new business or thinking about starting a business, I would definitely recommend starting with going here and perusing all the different tiles you've got here and getting to know our website. Lance later on is going to take you on a little bit of a tour of the website and show you some places, and Billy and I may do that during our sessions as well. But specifically, I'm going to click on for new businesses, and this is where we're going to walk through some steps like setting up your business, getting your licenses and permits, establishing tax accounts. Are you exempt from certain things? Perhaps. How to deal with TTAP, and then due dates. So you'll see here, click here to download a printable worksheet. This is actually a pretty cool resource. It's a checklist to go through just to make sure, like I said, you're dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's. So good resource there. I'll stop sharing for now and go back to the slides. So that's kind of a screenshot of what I just showed you on our website. But we are going to talk about setting up the business. The next few slides, we're going to discuss determining your business structure and your entity type, determining your business name or your DBA and any addresses associated with your business. Do you need to register with the Secretary of State? Do you need an employee identification number? Determining the start date of your business. What is your NES code? What is the NES code? Determining your fiscal tax year, determining who your directors, officers, shareholders are, if that's applicable. We're going to discuss all that, and I want to note here, you see in the blue box, we want to stress how important it is to determine these factors before you start registering for tax accounts and visiting your clerk's office and coming to visiting Department of Revenues, TTAP page to set up your tax accounts and going to Secretary of State and go and get liquor license or wherever. Make sure you've got all this information that you see right here, all these bullets lined up, because you're going to want all of that information to be the same with every government entity that you're registering with and that you have to deal with. If you have already started your business and what we're going to be talking about today makes you realize, wait, I think I might have done that wrong, that's okay too. We're here to help you. It's not too late to fix that and make sure that you've got everything consistent through all the different organizations and that you're set up the way you want to be set up. If you find that you've made a mistake with getting set up and you need to fix that, call us. That's what we're here for. All right, so moving on to business structure and entity type. So anyone who registers a business in Tennessee must ensure that they indicate their business structure, which is necessary to establish tax accounts. So establishing your business structure, what's your entity type? Are you going to be a sole proprietorship? Are you going to be a partnership, an LLC, a professional LLC, a corporation? Are you a nonprofit? Well, determining that is important. There's more information about those different types of entities on our website, but you see this chart here just in a nutshell. We'll walk through. A sole proprietorship is one individual who's in business alone, in terms of the way you're set up. With the state of Tennessee, you're going to be set up with your tax accounts based on the social security number of that individual sole proprietor. That's not to say you may not have to get an EIN for a different reason. Maybe you have employees and whatever. You're going to be, if you're a sole proprietorship, you're going to be set up in our tax account system with the state of Tennessee based on that, on your social. And it's going to be, that tax account is going to be actually in your name. And then your business name will just be your DBA. Partnership entity is generally two or more persons. They're going to be set up using a federal identification number. LLCs, we've got single member LLCs, which is one individual or one entity. can be set up with the social security number of the individual or an FEIN. Multi-member LLCs are set up using an FEIN. And again, we're talking about that this last column on this chart, the tax account numbers, how our tax accounts are set up based, what number they're based on, what entity number, entity ID. Hey, Billy.
Hey, I just wanted to throw a couple of things out here. I think that this slide is very valuable, but at the same time, like Katie has pointed out to you here, we do have some information on our website about this, and these are the different types of waste businesses are structured. If you're not familiar with the terminology that we're throwing at you on this, and you don't know what all this stuff means, it's a really good idea to educate yourself on that. Seek out the information on the web, or from a business advisor, somebody like that. Katie's going to show you a couple things here right now, it looks like. But the thing is, um, we can't tell you what the best thing is for you. Only you know that. Okay. Some of
Right.
you will be just fine being just a sole proprietorship. That's fine. But others might need to be LLCs and things like that. The one piece of advice I want to give you right now is something really important, and that is very simply this: because somebody told you that you need to be, as an example, an LLC, does not necessarily mean that you should be an LLC. Okay. It's really important to get this right up front. Okay. Not trying to preach at you or anything like that, but
It's a good
with,
thing to
with,
preach about. That's
but
good.
it's like, for instance, if you're an LLC and you register and you think you're going to do a business and start an LLC, there's fees with the Secretary of State. There's $100 tax you owe us every year,
Minimum.
even if you don't make a dime in income. Okay. So this is why getting it right up front is super important. You don't want to cost yourself money, time, anguish, etc., because you just heard that this is what you should do. Okay. So that's the only thing I wanted to say. And Katie, you've directed them to something on our website, right?
Yeah, this is on that new business page where I went just to show you here. Where I took you earlier, the four new businesses. So you went to the tn.gov/revenue and clicked on the four new businesses tile. When you click on step one, setting up your business, and scroll down just a little bit, you're going to see some information here about structure, business structure and entity type. The drop down, if you want to just get a basic understanding of what each entity is about, that this is a good place to go. We're going to be sharing with you some resources at the very end of the workshop today that are some outside resources outside of the Department of Revenue, Department of Commerce, and Department of Economic Development, Small Business Association. These types of resources have great information for you too, and actually can provide you with guidance and maybe a mentor that can help guide you in information in deciding things like this. So we can't decide it for you. I can tell you that much. Billy said that we do get that question sometimes. People call and say, "What should I be?" And I I'm not. We'll hold off on telling anybody what to be when it comes to that. We'll tell you how to set your tax accounts up after you decide what type of entity you are. So about halfway through this chart here, PLLCs, corporation, nonprofits, pretty much everything is set up with the Tennessee tax account using the EIN of the business. Unless you're a sole proprietorship or you're a single member LLC wanting to be set up using a social of that single member. And again, like I said a few minutes ago, you're going to want to make sure that this is consistent across all the different organizations that you're registering with. If you say you're a sole proprietorship with the Department of Revenue, but then you've changed your mind and you go and you set up with the Secretary of State, you got to line everything up. You're going to want to come back to us, make sure that we have you registered correctly and fix things. So we're there to help you do that if you need to. It's more important to get that to stay consistent and get set up correctly from the get-go, and that's why we're going to really stress these getting set up correctly slides that we're going through with you right now. All right, so establishing your business name. As I just mentioned, if you're a sole proprietorship, your tax account is going to be set up in your name. So for me, if I was a sole proprietorship, my business would be set up under Katie Julian, under my social. But obviously, I'm going to have a business name as well. I'm doing business as. There is a link. The Small Business Administration has a website with tips on how to select your business name. You can also go to the Tennessee Secretary of State's Business Name Availability Database. That's a good resource. But again, you're going to want to figure that out from the get-go for purposes of your business license and how your tax accounts are set up, all of that. Establishing your business name and being consistent with that is very important. Business address. So in Tennessee, we have some location-based taxes. Billy will talk to you about those here in a little while, but basically what that means is a tax based on the location of your business. Not a mailing address of your business, but where it's physically located, because sometimes those tax dollars are going to get allocated to the jurisdiction where the business is located. And if you're a home-based business, that is your home. Your location of your business is going to be your home if you're based out of your home. Building structures of brick and mortar will have a physical location address. If your business is online, like I just mentioned, or home-based, your location address is the physical place where your records are maintained. A business's location address cannot be a post office box. It has to be a regular street mailing address, a street address. Now, you can, when you're registering with us, you have the ability to add an additional mailing address. If it's different from your location, if you have a storefront, a brick and mortar storefront, and you don't want important tax mail going there, you want it to go to a PO box that you have access to, that's perfectly fine. You can add a different mailing address in there. All right, here. Next up, do you need to register with the Secretary of State? Um, in Tennessee, any corporation, limited partnership, LLC, business trust, doing business in Tennessee has to register with the Tennessee Secretary of State and file annual reports. So, like Billy just mentioned, if you decide you're going to be an LLC, there's some things that go along with that. It doesn't mean just tacking on LLC to the end of your name and being protected there. You will need to register with the Secretary of State. And in turn, it puts you on the hook for being required to register for Tennessee franchise and excise tax. We're not going to get lost in that right now. We'll talk about it here in a little while. But if you are going to be a corp, limited partnership, LLC, anything like that, you are going to need to register with the Secretary of State and file annual reports. There also are some requirements when it comes down to closing your business when you are those types of entities. If you're a sole proprietorship, you do not need to register with the Secretary of State. The IRS. All right. People sometimes get confused between us and the IRS. We're the state of Tennessee. The IRS, that's the federal government, the Internal Revenue Service. They're the ones that are going to issue an employer identification number. So I mentioned a little while ago that if you're a sole proprietorship, you're going to register with your social security number, right? Well, that doesn't mean you don't necessarily need an EIN. It's used to set up most tax accounts with us, except for the sole proprietorship and the single member LLCs. But if you're going to have employees, you're going to be required to have an EIN, even if you're a sole proprietorship or single member LLC. That's going to be a requirement of you. Here's where people get confused. They go get the EIN and they're a sole proprietorship, let's say, for example. They get the EIN and they'll register with us as a sole proprietorship, but use that EIN. That's gonna mess you up down the road. So if that applies to you, if you've done that, contact us. We can fix it. We can help you. But if you are a sole proprietorship, even if you have an EIN, you're required to set up your Tennessee tax accounts using your social. Start date. This is very, very important. Determining your business start date. The effective business start date is the date that tax obligation begins. So if you're just thinking about it right now and deciding what you want to do and you go register for some stuff, the day you start, if you list today as the start date of your business, the tax obligations start as of January. What is this? The 10th, I think. The 10th. So you want to make sure you're very careful about when you're listing, when you're saying the business is starting. If you've chartered with the Secretary of State prior to registering with us, you'll use the effective date of the charter. So I'm going to jump a little bit ahead right now. We're going to talk about sales tax details later, but just so you know, if a sales tax account is set up before a business opens, and that is not uncommon. You might be, if you're a retail business and you need to start buying your inventory, you're going to want to get that open up that sales tax account so you have a resale certificate. Well, you're still going to, you just need to know that once you open up that sales tax account, you're going to have a filing requirement, even if that means you go in and file 0. It's going to be very important that you do that. I used to work in our collections division, and I had so many businesses. I saw so many businesses wind up in collections because they opened up that sales tax account so they could get things going and start purchasing inventory, not realizing that that started a tax obligation. And month after month after month was going by where they weren't going in and at least just clicking that button to file 0 by the tax due date. And next thing they knew, they had this big pile on of estimates, and we can fix you and we can make it right. But if that applies to you, reach out to us. If you have opened up a sales tax account with us already and it's been a while and you haven't been filing because maybe you haven't opened yet, call us. Probably already gotten a letter from us if that was the case too, but we can fix you. We can help you with that. All right, so your NAICS code. NAICS stands for North American Industry Classification System Code. That's a long term there, but that's why we call it NAICS. This is a code that you're going to be required when you set up your tax accounts. You're going to be required to list a NAICS code. When you're setting up your business on TTAP, there's a chart that'll help you search for what type of business you're in. It's required that you do say what your NAICS code is. It can have repercussions. Just for an example, the NAICS code, back when COVID started, the federal government gave relief money to certain types of businesses. And the only way we knew the type of business was by searching our system for the NAICS code to find out who was a restaurant, who was a salon, the types of businesses that got that relief. That was the only way we knew. So it's important that you set your NAICS code up correctly to what your business is actually, the purpose of your business is. Federal fiscal tax year. This is also very important for you to set up correctly. Most businesses are set up on a calendar year, which is 12 consecutive months beginning January 1 and ending December 31. That's what's most common. That is going to determine your tax filing deadlines for these annual based taxes. Some businesses have a different fiscal year where it ends in a different month other than December. It's important that you stick with that and understand what that is, because, for example, for a December 2031 fiscal tax year, your business tax, your franchise excise tax, all those are going to be due on April 15th. They're due on the 15th day of the 4th month following the end of your fiscal tax year. So setting that up correctly will allow us to know how to set up your tax deadlines. The last thing is identifying the directors, officers, and shareholders. When you're registering for your tax types, it's going to ask this information. This is important information for you to determine before you start your business. That's not to say that once you get started, this information can't change, and it can. But when it does change, it's important that you let us know. And if you are chartered with the Secretary of State, let them know as well. But go ahead and, before you get going, identify and get all of that combine, get it all put together before you start filling out all the paperwork. That's what that checklist that I showed you is for. It walks you through. Fill out, if you haven't yet started your business and haven't yet started applying for tax accounts and licenses, I really recommend filling out that checklist, going to that checklist and going through it to make sure you've got all your ducks in a row before you get going. And one of those is determining who the officers are, if that is applicable to your entity type, like a multi-member LLC or corporation. All right, licenses, permits, and more. I have an exclamation there like it's exciting, right? This is the stuff that can be not fun to deal with. You've got to go to so many different places, visit an office here, an office there, go online to do this. I've had a small business before. I understand how frustrating all this part can be. We do our best with this slide right here to encompass the main places you're going to have to go. That doesn't mean there aren't other places depending on your type of business, but this just covers the basics here. A business license. You get your business license from your city and county clerk's office. This applies to and is required for most businesses in Tennessee with very few exceptions. There were some changes this year to the threshold of whether you need a minimal activity license or a standard business license, and there are tax implications there. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes, but just so you know, your business license, you go to your city and county clerk's office. If you have a standard license, you'll renew it a different way. You'll renew it through filing with us, but most people, especially with the new threshold we'll talk to you about here in a bit, are going to at least have a minimal license and renew directly with the clerk's office. As we mentioned, to charter and do business registration through the Tennessee Secretary of State's office, that is going to be required for partnerships, corporations, LLCs, business trusts. All that can be done online at this point. And I will note, let me go back a row here. A lot of counties, you can apply for your business license online. Cities, you just need to see whether the city that you're operating in even requires business license. If it does, whether that is available to you for you to do online. But at Secretary of State, you can definitely register and file your annual reports all online. So that's great. Um, your FEIN, you get that from the IRS. We cannot issue you that. You have to be issued your FEIN from the IRS. And again, that's required for in terms of setting up your tax accounts with the state of Tennessee for partnerships, corps, LLCs, business trusts. And if your business is going to have employees, as I mentioned, you're going to need an EIN. Pretty easy process at this point too. It used to be a lot more cumbersome, but now getting your EIN is quick, easy on the IRS's website. If you are going to have employees and payroll, you're going to go visit or go to the website of the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development regarding unemployment insurance and unemployment insurance tax. That's not something we handle. It's one of the taxes in Tennessee that the Department of Revenue is not responsible for administering. That unemployment insurance tax and unemployment insurance is all handled through the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development. Again, if you're going to have employees or payroll, go to their website. They've got a great website that's got information about everything you need to know and some good FAQs on that unemployment insurance. There are certain professions such as contractors, cosmetologists, insurance agents that require a professional license. This can be confusing. There's a difference between that professional license that you get through the Department of Commerce and Insurance and your business license. I was in a county clerk's office a couple years ago, and a contractor came in and he said, "I've already got my license. I've got my contractor's license." He pulled it out and he said, "Here's my contractor's license." Well, that's his professional license. That's different than the business license. He needed to get a business license from the clerk's office. That professional license, some professional licenses are going to be tied into a tax with us called the professional privilege tax. I will say we're not going to be talking about that today. We do have a great webinar out on our website that deals with professional privilege tax. There's just a few professions that have to pay that tax, just a very few. Used to be a lot of professions, but anyways, that actual professional license, if you're a doctor, a nurse, contractor, cosmetologist, we don't handle that. That's through Department of Commerce and Insurance. Your alcohol license, that's another license that is tied in with a tax that you pay. So if you are going to be serving liquor by the drink, and some other types of businesses will need an alcohol license. There's a tax associated with a lot of alcoholic beverages, but to get the actual alcohol license, you're going to go to the Tennessee Alcohol Beverage Commission, and that's for sales of alcoholic beverages for consumption on the premises. Tax accounts. That is where we come into play, the Tennessee Department of Revenue. Most businesses, with very few exceptions, are going to have some kind of tax account with us. There, like I said, very few exceptions. I have a hard time coming up with any, but if you're a business and you're in Tennessee, chances are you're going to have some sort of tax account set up with us. Now, if you live in Tennessee as well as operate a business here, you know, like I do, we do not have an income tax, and that's fantastic. A lot of the tax responsibilities and a lot of the income and revenue that we have in Tennessee falls on the businesses to pay or collect. Businesses collect sales tax. Everybody, all consumers in this state, when you buy products in this state, or from businesses in the state, you're going to pay sales tax, and that's about 70% of the revenue that comes in, but those businesses are the ones responsible for collecting it and then turning it over to us. So side note, being a state that doesn't have an income tax and very business friendly too, tax wise, we are ranked a few different organizations, Mercatus, U.S. News and World Report, rank Tennessee as number 3 in the country for fiscal stability. So I'm pretty proud of that, the fact that we don't have an income tax here, but have such strong fiscal stability with our state budget. So the next step, you're going to decide which tax types are applicable to your business, and we're going to detail that here in just a minute. And you're also going to ensure that you have access to all your tax accounts on TTAP. Lance is going to go through TTAP with you later on in today's workshop. TTAP is our online filing system. Online filing is required, and registering, it's all online now. So over the past 5 years, we've transitioned to everything being right at your fingertips at your computer. It's easy, but you do want to make sure you have access to all your tax accounts on TTAP. If you've already started your business and you do not have a TTAP account yet, alert. Listen to me right now. Make sure you get TTAP access and make sure you have access to your tax accounts once you have that, once you get into TTAP. That can be kind of confusing for some. All right, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break, y'all. It's 10:04 Eastern Time, 9:04 Central Time. Let's come back at 9:10 Central Time or 10:10 Eastern Time. I'll put that in the chat, and we'll go over some of your questions that maybe haven't been addressed uh, in writing in the chat. I've been talking, so I haven't been checking out what's going on in there, but we'll see you in about 5 minutes. All right.
Okay, so I guess we're back, being that it's 9:10, and like Katie said, we are going to entertain any questions that you guys might have had from the first part of the presentation. I think Katie did a really good job of covering the basics of registration, and honestly, registration sort of drives what we do at the Department of Revenue. Getting it right up front is super duper important, just as any changes that you might have. And Katie, you mentioned things like addresses and stuff like that. Um, we have this running joke that we have, is because we're government people, we're really funny people, aren't we, Katie? We're hilarious. But the joke is that we don't have a crystal ball at the Department of Revenue. We don't know when you move. We don't know when you close. Okay, unless you close on TTAP and you do your closure properly, things of that nature. But what we routinely find out, and Lance, you might jump in on this one too, is, it's okay. We can deal with your problem, whatever it might be. But when we send out letters that say you owe $500 on a sales tax return just because you forgot to file it, um, you don't really owe $500, right, Lance?
That's correct. That's correct. A knee-jerk reaction, which it is a valid one and an honorable one, is to get these matters taken care of post haste. As Katie has done a terrific job in driving home, call us first. Get in touch with us first. Research it first. The key word to those, we call them nastygrams from Nashville. The key word is estimate. Okay, it's an estimated assessment, which means we've received nothing. We've not received a return, so we have no way of knowing how much you owe. But based on the type of business, we do a figure and we send it out, and much of the time it's much higher than what you would normally owe. So it's always good to reach out. If you don't know, give us a call. If you don't know, email us. If you don't know, just simply go to the website, and we'll get into that a little later. Great source of information. I brag day in and day out on our website. So yeah.
It is great. And I know we are jumping a little bit ahead right now, but I think it's real important for new businesses to understand the collections process and what do these letters mean if you do miss a deadline. It's not uncommon to kind of, once you're getting, we don't want to see that. We hate to see people miss deadlines. We do not want to see you owe any penalty, interest, anything like that. But we do have a really good resource in case we forget to tell you later about that whole process. Even though you hope to never be in the collections process, we have a webinar that we did around this time last year. We have the video of it on our website. It's called Tax Collections, and just if you put the keyword collections in there, I think it's the tax compliance in the collections process. That was the name of the webinar that we did.
Yeah,
and it will discuss all that. So those of you that, like I mentioned earlier, you opened up that sales tax account, but you haven't started your business yet, and that was months ago, and you've not filed anything, don't freak out. You're going to get this letter, like the nastygram, like Lance said. It would say, you owe us $1,000. Well, no, that's just an estimate. You just need to get right with us, go in and file zeros if you haven't sold anything. So that webinar details all of that, because we're not going to go into detail about that today. Honestly, y'all, we don't have time to. But I'm glad you mentioned that, and we're able to mentioning that resource now, because I think every business probably needs to. There's a handful of webinars. If I could curate a list of webinars that we've got for a new business. Actually, you know what? I might do that for the next one of these new business workshops that we have. That tax collections and that compliance and tax collections webinar would be one of the ones I would recommend checking out. So I'm talking too much. Sorry, y'all.
No, that's what you do, Katie. You talk.
I know. Shut me
We
up.
pay you to talk. See, that's how it goes. It's perfect. It's perfect. But yeah, I mean, like Lance said, going back on this stuff, when you register, we tell you you owe sales tax every month by the 20th of the following month, or you're set up on a quarterly basis, or ever how we set you up. Business taxes due every year by the 15th day of the fourth month following the end of your period, which we'll talk about in a second. So when you don't file it and you don't pay it, you're going to get the nastygram that Lance talked about, but that's not the end of the world. And honestly, folks, really, your one main goal and our main goal is that you only pay exactly what you owe. We don't want to charge you extra money. Really, we don't. Honest. But we have to if you're late and that. But we also want to work with you when you've got some different things there too. Okay. Um, I was looking at chat here real quick. It looks like we've got most of these things answered here. I was going to talk about, is it Camilla? I hope I'm saying your name
Yeah, I just
correctly.
saw that one. That's a good
Yeah,
question.
if you don't have employees, but you might in the future, you can go ahead and get an EFEN. Actually, you can. If you want to, that's fine. If you're a sole proprietorship, we're only going to require your social security number anyway, so we don't really need your FEIN. But with the IRS, when you go out to irs.gov and you do a search for employer identification number or the old form number that they used to use, and I guess they probably still do, is SS-4. That's Sam-4. That form allows you to apply for a federal ID number. But guess what? You can do it online with the IRS. And literally, I'd say 8 to 10 minutes later, on your screen pops up a letter that has your number on it. Just print it off. That's that easy. And yeah, it's no problem. You can do that right now, and it won't be any difficulty at all. Having the number doesn't necessarily create any sort of filing requirement with us, but it can be good. I would recommend though that you be sure that you're definitely going to get into business before you start going down these roads. And then once you are sure you've got your business plan, you figure out what you're doing, go ahead and do that as well too. And I see another comment on here. I haven't had time to read all of this. Let's see. Thank you for coming today too. Yes, sir. Let's see. Lives in Donaldson. We know where that is. And process of opening a single member LLC. Going to be a notary. All right, very good. All right, well, good to have you with us. We talked a little bit earlier about the registration process with LLCs and that, so we won't go too deep into it, but you're very welcome to be joining us today, and business tax will be applying to you, so you may pay attention to the next little section that we do. With that, I think I'll go ahead and start talking about business tax. Katie, I think Katie knows, and Lance knows probably too, that I love business tax so much, and I'm being very facetious. Business tax is ornery, and I'm just going to leave it at that. That's your big word for the day, okay? So, but we're going to get through all these requirements and make sure that you know kind of what's going on with that. So with that, let's
I
talk
do want to
about.
say real quick before you get started, in case we forget to say later, this month's tax webinar, we do a tax webinar the last Tuesday of every month. This month's tax webinar is dedicated to business tax basics. So Billy, you're just going to kind of give a very brief overview because of time restraints of today, but we're going to go into much more detail in that webinar that we've got later this month.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Katie. That's right. And if you're watching this as a recorded version, we'll have that business tax basics recording posted in the webinar library as well once it's done. So this graphic here kind of tells you a little bit about business tax and licensing. So business tax and licenses are sort of married together. We'll talk about that. So look at the top where it says under $3,000. So if your gross sales, also known in tax lingo as gross receipts, annually every year are under $3,000, you don't need a business license from your county clerk. Now, if you're in a city across our state, and most of our incorporated cities have business tax and licensing, okay? We're talking about that too. But in either case, if you're under 3,000 a year, you are so small that the law does not require you to get a license nor to pay any business tax. And of course, there's no renewal because you're not getting a license. Okay. So that's very, very easy. So until you get up to that level, you don't even need to worry about really anything I'm telling you in this whole business tax section. Okay. Because it won't apply to you. All right. So more of you will probably be within that $3,000 to $100,000 range. Now, not to belabor this, because as new businesses, most of you are going to not know what the old law said, but until last year, when the law changed for 2023 and beyond, this 100,000 was only 10,000. So if you had an old business and you were kind of looking at a different threshold, that threshold changed to 100,000. So if you're between $3 and $100,000 in gross annual sales, all you need is a minimal business license from that county clerk. And like I said, if you're in the city, from the city recorder as well. Okay. There is no business tax. You don't pay us a tax on this. They just deal with the licenses with the clerk's office. You renew them every year before the last license expires, and each license costs $15. We'll talk about that in a little bit more later. Okay. Now, if you're $100,000 or more, you have a bigger business, okay, and gross sales. By the way, this is not profits. This is gross sales. Okay. So 100,000 or more, you're going to need what's called a standard business license, or in terminology that some of us use, regular business license. Okay. So businesses that are at this level are required to pay Tennessee's business tax, which, as you'll find out pretty soon, is not a ton of money for most businesses, particularly small businesses out there, but it is a requirement. And the renewal process takes place by you filing the return and making the payment with us. Then we let the clerks know that you did that, and you get a license automatically issued. And your license doesn't cost $15, it's free. Okay. Except for the first application that you file with the clerks, they're going to require a $15 initial fee. But after that, you don't have to pay any more. Okay. So, like I said earlier, kind of joking around and kind of not joking around, business tax is sort of hairy, but this is where it starts. Okay. This is where we get it right up front and make sure that you get the correct license that you need going out. I saw something pop up here. Let's see if we can go ahead and address that from, is it Emily? It may be Emily. I hope I'm saying names right, and I'll apologize if I'm not getting your name correct. Timing of all this, getting started, and hopefully we'll make more than 3,000 next year. New business, good, but haven't yet. So you go ahead and get a minimal license? Yeah, it's a judgment call. Honestly, it is. Okay. So what some people would do is say, okay, I'm just going to wait till I know I go over the 3,000. And then I want to go down to the clerk's office and get my licenses then. That's cool. If you want to do it that way. If you want to go ahead and get it up front, go ahead and pay your $15 and go ahead and get that in there. That is not going to hurt anything. You're fine. So it's really a matter of what you want to do. Okay. And you won't upset the apple cart either. And one thing we'd ask you to do, that if you have a new business and you decide to get out of business, that you actually let us know, or let the clerk's office know that you're no longer in business, so we can kind of take you out of the system, so that we don't bother you with requests for licenses and things like that in the future. Okay. But anyway, thanks for that question. That's a good question there too. Is this something that can be done online, or we would need to go to the clerk in person? A lot of the clerk offices have it set up that you can actually make an application for a business license online through their websites. Okay. So if you want to check that out with your local county clerk or city recorder's office, you're welcome to do that. Otherwise, you would need to check with them. Okay. So yeah, it's sort of hit or miss. It's not the same in every county or city, so I don't really have a firm answer on it for you, other than to tell you that sometimes you can do that. Okay. All right. And let's go ahead and talk about some more stuff. Thank you for your comments here too. So again, in-state businesses with gross sales over $100,000 are subject to business tax. And for contractors, it's a little bit different. Okay. So contractors under our laws have to report their gross sales of 100,000 or more by jurisdiction. So if they're doing projects in different cities and counties out there, they may need to have business licenses in a lot of different cities and counties where they're going over $100,000. And of course, this applies, like it says in bullet number 3 here, to in-state and out-of-state contractors also. Okay, so if you're out of state, outside Tennessee, coming in here and doing contracting work, the law applies in the same way. Okay. All right, very good. And for out-of-state businesses with a substantial nexus in Tennessee and engaged in activities and gross receipts within accounting $100,000 or more, we do have a webinar that talks about nexus or presence in our state for out-of-state businesses, not only for business tax, but other taxes too. So we've already got that recording out there for you if you happen to be outside of Tennessee. All right.
Hey, Billy.
Hey,
I just
what you
wanted to
got?
mention one thing. We get questions a lot of times from businesses located in this state. They'll say, "Do I need a license in Kentucky? Do I need to register for sales tax in North Carolina? I do a lot of business there. I do." What we like to say, and this applies to, I mean, Tennessee touches what, 8 other states. Not to mention, there's a lot of people selling online and stuff. So you may do business in other states. It's very common. We recommend that you reach out to those states. Hopefully, they've got good websites and good information. Maybe they've got as good a customer service as we have, right? I don't know, but just some
Right.
advice. If you're a business and you make sales to people in other that are located in other states, whether it's online or what, it is important that you check out other states' laws, just like out-of-state businesses are wanting to check out our laws. So just throwing that out there. We don't know anything about what other states do. Honestly, I can say I kind of stay in my lane with that. I don't know much about even the surrounding states, what their business licensing laws are and sales tax thresholds and all that. I don't know, but you need to check that out if that's applicable.
Oh, thanks, Katie. That's a very good point. Emily pointed out something in chat here too. I thought was pretty interesting for the her business being in the Davidson County, Nashville area. This is sort of weird. It works weird here, and what that is that Davidson County is a metropolitan government, which means they operate both the county of Davidson and the city of Nashville as one entity. So what you end up doing, Emily, is you make the application to the Davidson County Clerk's office, and they're going to set you up based on where your address is and your location. You're either in the general services district or the urban services district. Okay. So if you're in the urban services, meaning city, that's going to be Nashville. Okay. So that's going to basically be $15 times 2, which is $30 for that license. Okay. And that's a great question. It works that way. And if any of you are in the Shelby County, Memphis area, oddly enough, the Shelby County clerk issues the city of Memphis license also, and they do that sort of by an agreement that they've got with the city of Memphis. They sort of administer that for the city. So it's one of these anomalies that's out there. But basically, for the rest of you and other places, it's going to the city or going to the county. Okay, fair enough. Thank you for asking some really good questions in chat. So there are some things that are not subject to business tax too. Casual and isolated sales. A good example of that might be a garage sale. You know, if you operate and have a garage sale in your front yard or your garage or whatever, and we're not going to tell you to get a business license or to pay business tax. That's not a thing. Okay. Gross receipts under 100,000. And of course, we just talked about that. If you're under the 100,000, we just need you to get the license. But there's actually, in these other bullets that you see on this slide right here, there are some services that are exempt from business tax. Okay. Um, there are also some entities that are excluded from business tax, like governments. Um, some different businesses that are excluded also might be like doctors providing medical services, or dentists, or people like that. So they don't need business licenses at all because the law says they're exempt. Okay. And then there's other sales that you might make that are exempt from business tax too. And again, this is sort of an overview in today's presentation, and we're not going to go through all the details of that. We do have this class coming up, or the webinar coming up later on this month, and we'll get a little deeper with that. So you're welcome to attend that, and we're glad to help you with those questions. Also, this business tax manual that's hyperlinked in here, when you get the PDF form from our website, these hyperlinks will work and take you to the business tax manual that we have out there and give you lots of examples of this too. So if you have any questions about whether or not your business is exempt, let us know. And there we go. I'm just checking chat here. Yeah, looks like we're caught up on that. Okay, let's move to the next slide. A business tax overview. So basically, if you are subject to the business tax, this is the way that you calculate it. Okay. So you take your gross sales, meaning your total overall sales, not your profits, but your gross amounts, and you multiply it by the rate, which is based on your type of business that you are and your dominant or your main activity. That's explained in the business tax manual as well, and whether or not you're a retailer or a wholesaler. So that's your tax. And then away from that, there are certain deductions and credits that are available, which are explained in the manual as well. And that equals the tax that's due. Now, that sounds like a lot. And if you're not a math person, it's like, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? Right? Well, it comes down to this. Again, if you're not over $100,000, we're not even needing to look at this slide because you're not subject to business tax and you only needed that minimal activity license likely, right? So assuming you are a bigger business and you're making this calculation, you're going to be signing into our TTAP system. You're going to have your business tax account set up and your username and password and all the good stuff Lance is going to tell you about later. And then you're just going to let the system do all this math for you. So you're going to put in the gross sales, and you're going to put in the type of deductions that you might have, and that it's going to basically say, okay, you owe this much money, and then how do you want to pay it? So that's where the use of technology is really good, because sometimes these forms can be a little cumbersome, but online it's actually pretty easy. Okay. And one of the cooler things, just a little advertisement here for a quick moment. If you are ever get stuck when you're out on TTAP and you're like, I don't get it. I can't make this work. Something's weird. I can't make this screen change and that sort of thing there too. So if that's the case, call us and we'll share our phone number with you at the end there for our call center. And let us talk to you while you're actually in the TTAP system, because we can actually follow your screen and say, oh, you're forgetting to click on this over here, or that kind of thing. So pretty neat, pretty swift way to get your things taken care of. All right. All right. That's it for business tax. So I want to take just a breath here real quick and ask all of you to type in any questions that you might have in chat on business tax and what we've talked about. I think some of you have already taken advantage of that, and we appreciate that. If there's any others that pop in here in the next minute or so, we will be glad to entertain that. Lance and Katie, are there any issues that you think we might need to reemphasize or anything?
With business tax,
Yeah.
I just really want to reiterate the attend if they've got questions, which if you're a new business, you probably do, attending that webinar later this month, because we'll go into much more detail about everything you just had. I can't think of anything off the bat that we wouldn't be handling there in that webinar.
And
Yeah.
everything was covered well. You did hit something on at the end where you was talking about a lot of times we'll get hung up on a return, filing a return. I find it easy to overlook those yes or no questions. If you've never
Mhm.
filed a return, you don't know what I'm talking about yet. If you have ever seen that, they're very small little question line that simply asks yes or no. And a lot of times we bypass those. And if you do not answer those questions, you will be hung up, and it feels like you're going in a loop. So just read carefully, go through, make sure. I tell everyone this. It sounds rudimentary. Make sure you maximize your screen when you're dealing with a return so you can get the full screen value of the return, and it makes it a little easier to view. But Billy's right.
Otherwise, you'll have to scroll down, won't you?
You got it.
That's good advice, Lance.
That's where there's the hard things and easy things, but they're all frustrating things at different times. So
Yes.
particularly if you're trying to self-administer your tax situation at 10 o'clock at night and you're hung up, that gets a little bit weird. But yeah. So anyway, thanks guys for pointing that out there too.
Right.
So if there's no other questions, we're going to talk about sales tax next. And what's kind of interesting about sales tax is that sales tax is almost 2/3 of the money that we collect at the Department of Revenue. It is the biggest thing that we do as far as money goes. Business tax is important, but it's very small as far as amounts of collections. But the state makes most of its revenue from sales tax, and that's why it's very important that businesses are collecting the sales tax properly and remitting it to us in a timely manner to avoid, the extra charges that we were talking about before that we don't want you guys to pay. So let's talk about how this is broken out here a little bit. Um, for Tennessee, the sales tax applies to dealers that are engaged in the business of making taxable products or sales of services in Tennessee. As we'll learn here pretty quickly, in fact, right now, the sales of tangible personal property, this is stuff that you can touch and feel, okay? It's an item, all right? It's basically subject to tax unless there's a law that says it's not subject to tax. And we're going to talk about the different types of exemptions here in just a moment about the different ways these are exempt. We even have a slide on it here too, and it sort of alludes to it on this slide right here too. But the sales of services are generally not taxable, like it says in red. Okay, unless, by the way, they're listed in the law or they're part of a sale where there's the sale of tangible personal property. As an example, if you have your car repaired, that's a service, but there's parts involved. Okay, so you're going to have to pay sales tax on the entire transaction. Okay, and then of course we mention different things that are subject, different services that are subject to the actual sales tax, like parking and storage of motor vehicles, as an example. Um, I believe buried in the law, just for your information, is the spallation of neutrons. How about that? What does that mean? I don't know, but we'll have to ask somebody in Oak Ridge about that. But anyway, it's buried in the law, and we don't mention that obviously unless we're just talking about things that are weird here too. But we do have a special webinar about services that are subject to sales tax, and we've got the link for that, and which will be available to you in written form tomorrow on our website. Okay, so essentially, if you're selling stuff, it's subject to tax. If you're selling services, mostly it's not subject to tax, with asterisks on both of those. Okay. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. Okay. All right. So, sales tax nexus, presence. In other words, are you in Tennessee? Are you here physically? All right. So let's look at yes. If you're an in-state business and you sell tangible personal property, If you do more than $4,800 annually, say $400 a month, then we're going to need you to register with us on the TTAP system for a sales tax account and basically file and pay sales tax on a regular basis to us. Typically, we will register people for monthly filing up front. Once you've been filing for about a year or so, and we see if your sales are low, we might offer you the opportunity to switch to quarterly filing, which is a little bit less frequent and a little bit less effort on your part. But we will talk to you guys about that on a case-by-case basis as far as that goes. But again, $400 a month when you're selling stuff, tangible personal property. Now, if you're one of the few businesses that has a taxable service, that threshold is actually only $1,200 or $100 a month, $1,200 annually or $100 a month. So you need to register if you meet that threshold, okay? And then, of course, if the sales of these products or services are not met, then you don't have to register with us if you're inside Tennessee, okay? Now, there's things that started a few years ago, not only in our state, but other states as well, and it deals with economic nexus. In other words, if you're outside of Tennessee and you're selling to customers inside Tennessee, we look at this a little bit differently. So even though business tax and the $100,000 that we mentioned before is the same as this $100,000 threshold you see here, they're actually not married together in the law. But think about it this way. If you're, say, in Kentucky and you make sales regularly to people in Tennessee, you're sending them things, you're shipping them items that you've sold to them, then you need to register with us if that's $100,000 or more in sales within 12 months, okay? So that once you get to that point, we need you to register and pay Tennessee sales tax on the sales that you make to Tennessee people, okay? That's pretty much how it goes. And then there's some other language that we have in the law about substantial nexus, which basically means that you might have other things that you're doing in Tennessee, like you have equipment here, or you have salespeople in our state, but your business is located outside the state, things of that nature. So there's other ways to meet this presence or this nexus requirement here too. And notice, here we are again. We have another webinar out there that talks about how to report these sales when you're outside of Tennessee, back to Tennessee on our TTAP sales tax return, okay? And then, of course, if you don't have any economic or substantial nexus or presence in Tennessee, you don't have to register with us, okay? So there's thousands of companies out there in other states that aren't registered to collect Tennessee sales tax because they don't have to. There's a few that voluntarily do, and there's some that are actually required to because of the $100,000 thing, okay? So that's how that works. So again, not real easy, but it is easy for us to talk to you about it if you have any questions. So make sure that you either call us or email us or contact us in some way so that we can do that. Someone had a question. Ooh, let's see what it is. All right. If we've been paying TTAP monthly, but at the end of our fiscal year, the annual sales end up being less than 4,800, what might that mean? Oh, well, I'll tell you what, here's the law. The law says this. Yes, you do have to complete your tax returns. Yes, you do have to remit what you have collected from your customers. By the way, if you don't collect sales tax from your customers, you're still on the hook, okay? So if you have these sales and you're registered, you're going to have to report them, all right? What you might consider, though, honestly, in your situation there, if you're under the 4,800, I wonder if we don't just need to close your sales tax account out right now for future filing so that we can let your business kind of build up a little bit. And then once you start getting over that average of $400 a month again, and start collecting again later on, because we can turn that back on for you, you know. So there are plenty of businesses out there that are filing zero tax returns with us on a monthly basis, which is okay, but it's sort of annoying. And maybe you don't want to go through all that. Dan, you had a comment too, I guess.
How would that affect his ability to get a sales tax exemption, not a sales tax exemption, the reseller certificate?
Correct. So on the resale certificate side of it, Dan, you would be issued a resale certificate once you register for collecting sales tax. Okay, but you would not be allowed to use a resale certificate any longer if you don't have an open sales tax account. So in other words, any sort of purchase of products that you might be doing, if you had a closed account, you would not want to use a resale certificate because it would not really be a valid use of it. Okay. So there's sort of a trade-off on that. And that would be very important to make sure we get it right. Okay. So anyway, that's a lot. And thank you for the question on that. And I guess we'll go ahead and move on. And if you have any other questions, pop them in chat real quick. So the rates, how much is this tax? You know, it's sort of high in Tennessee compared to other states. But remember, like Katie said earlier, our state does not have a true state income tax. In fact, it has no income tax at all now on any type of income. So this is a great thing. So the general state sales tax rate is 7%. But on food, it's actually only 4%. Now, last year, we had a sales tax holiday for food and food ingredients, but we do not have that currently scheduled for this year. So if the legislature decides that they will have that in another year, we will put out more information on that. But as of right now, the state food sales tax rate is 4%. Now, excuse me, one thing that you may want to know also is the local governments also have sales tax. Okay. Now, some other states, when they do their taxing, they might have a business file a state sales tax return, and they might have them file a county sales tax return to the county. Some of them even require a city tax return. That's a lot of tax returns. So basically in Tennessee, what we have done over the years is we've said, look, file it all to the state, send us all the money, and then we'll send the local governments their part of the money. Okay. So that way the businesses are only reporting this one time and they're not burdened with doing multiple returns, because that would get extremely annoying very fast. Okay. So that local sales tax rate, as you can see, is 2.75%, which is the maximum, or less, depending on where you're located. So whatever city or county that you're in is at that whatever rate they've established locally. A lot of them are 2.75. Some of them are 2.5. Some are 2.25. Okay. I think the lowest I've seen is 1.5. So it is certainly out there, and we do have maps and rates, lists, and stuff like that on our website as well too, which of course the link is right there for you as well. Now, there's also some special rates for some special things that the legislature said, look, for these things, you've got to charge this in a special way. So one of these is on digital products, which can be on things like videos and all kinds of other stuff like that. They're taxed at a rate of 7%, but then that local rate is a flat 2.5%. Okay. And we have a special webinar on that too. I'll keep saying that because Katie and I and others have done quite a bit of work in the last few years and putting out a lot of information. So if this applies to you, you can actually go out there and look at that kind of stuff too. Actually, the tax guide, or tax manual rather, has tons of information about this subject as well too. And then Also, there's a special tax called a single article tax. Okay. Think about things that are kind of high dollar, like cars. That's the best example I can think of. So when you have a single article, essentially that 7% tax applies to all the dollars that you're being charged for that item. But the local tax is only charged on the first $1,600. Then the single article tax, which is 2.75%, and it starts at dollar basically number 1601 and goes through dollar number 3200. So that next $1,600 of that price is taxed at that 2.75%. Then there's no more single article tax. The most single article tax you'll ever pay is $44, which is $1,600 times 2.75%. Okay. So that's how that works. So if your head is spinning right now, congratulations, you're actually listening. so don't feel bad. That's what I'm saying. This is the way things go. And but again, we're always here to help you when you have questions about this stuff. I will say this: if you're doing your sales tax return online using our TTAP system, it takes a lot of this stuff that we're talking about into account already. You don't have to remember your local rate. We know your local rate because we know where you're located. When you registered with us, we know your address is in whatever city and whatever county. And we know what your rate is based on that address. Don't worry about it. It's all good. So we're good like that. Okay. Okay, so going back to this exemption discussion that we saw on the other slide here, there's really three different kinds of exemptions. The first one is a usage based. Okay. So depending on how the product is used, it could be exempt. And the example that we've included here is like pollution control equipment, which it doesn't apply to everybody at all, hardly any. Then you can apply for that, and we will give you an exemption, which requires which you can prevent or present the certificate and say, hey, all my pollution control stuff, don't charge me sales tax. Um, Product-based exemptions. These are easier to explain, and like textbooks. So the legislature has said over the years, we do not want students having to buy textbooks and having to pay sales tax. So in the law, it says textbooks are exempt, and they are. Okay, just like the meals that you are charged at the kids' schools. They are not subject to sales tax, and there's certain healthcare items that have been determined under the legislature that are actually free of sales tax as well. So the stores that sell those items know what they are, and their cash registers would normally not ring up sales tax on those. Okay. And if you have any questions about that, we've got a list of these things in our manual and on our website as well too. Then the final exemption part of that is entity-based exemptions, like governments, Tennessee counties and municipalities. They're exempt, okay? And there's a generic certificate of government exemption that's on our website that these counties and cities use, and they need to pay in funds that are from the county and the city. They can't use personal checks and things like that. Personal credit cards, that won't work. They've got to use a government credit card, a government check, a government purchase order, things like that in order for them to be exempt. Now, nonprofits is something we get lots of questions about. Nonprofits, which are typically 501c3 organizations under IRS law, or certain other exempt organizations, can apply and get exemptions for products that are used by the organization or consumed by the organization, or that they might choose to give away. Okay. But if they sell items, they're not exempt. Okay. There's a big difference. So, if I have a nonprofit organization and I need to buy cleaning supplies for our meeting room or our property or whatever, we're going to be using those to clean up on our property, and those are exempt. But if I were to be selling cleaning products, which I can't imagine why you would do that, but maybe you would, then no, they are not exempt from the collection of sales tax. You could use a resale certificate and acquire the products, not paying sales tax up front, but you're going to have to charge sales tax on that if you're selling taxable items, even if you are a nonprofit. Now, there are some different rules. I'm not going to go too deep into that about some periods that you're allowed twice a year for nonprofits to make sales. We're not here to do all that today, but anyway, it's out in the law as well. Farmers, oh my goodness, we're renewing farm exemptions right now for that we do every 4 years. And we're asking our farmers to get with us and provide updated information. We want them to do that now because their certificates that they did hold are expired. So if they try to go and buy things for their agricultural operation, they can't do it if they don't have a valid certificate or a little card that they put in their wallet. So anyway, we're working with them on that. Manufacturers are also exempt as well when they're buying industrial machinery that's making products, and we offer certificates for that. Katie, you got something you want to point out?
Yeah, just wanted to mention that you may be listening to Billy right now and looking at this slide thinking, none of these apply to me in my business. I'm not a farmer. I'm not a government agency. I'm not a nonprofit, so on and so forth. I don't sell any of these exempt products. Well, that may be the case, but if you're a business, you may have customers who will be presenting you with this piece of paper, and you're going to go, "What is this?" So, just keep in mind that there are people there there are entities and there are forms you're going to see presented to you. They're going to say, I don't need to pay sales tax. So you may want to study up just a little bit on this. We've got the sales tax manual, chapter 18 on this. The biggest thing I can tell you about that, and Billy already mentioned it, is you want to make sure that the funds that they're paying with are in the name that's listed on that form that they're giving you, that exemption form. The funds need to be in their name, and then make sure that that exemption form is in date. He just mentioned that right now a lot of agricultural exemptions have just expired. So most exemptions do have an expiration date on them. So if you're taking them in, you want to keep those exemption forms that you take from your customer that's using it. You want to keep them on file for audit purposes, and make sure they're in date and make sure the payments match up with the name on the form. So just mentioning that.
Yep. And Katie, we have a PDF now, don't we? Looks like we have a PDF on our website.
Yes, we do. We just got that updated. The link I put in the chat, so you can hop in there. We're on slide 22 or page 22 in that, just FYI. Actually, we're one page off because my slides have an intro page on them. So around page 22-ish of that PDF is where we are if you want to follow along with us and be able to access those links now.
And the recording will be out there later today or tomorrow. So just to let you know that too. Okay. So those are exemptions. Resale certificate. I want to talk about this too in the context of what Katie was saying. So let's look at it two different ways. Let's look at you as a business. Let's say you're buying items that you're going to resell to other people. Well, you definitely want to use a resale certificate to acquire those items so that you don't pay sales tax on those items. Now, when you sell them to that end customer, you're obviously going to collect sales tax. So the acquisition of the items is what you're doing here with this certificate of resale. Also, operating in business, you might have people come to you and say, hey, I want to buy your stuff, but I'm going to resell it to other people. So since I'm going to resell it, here's my resale certificate. So what you have to do on that is you have to report that on the sales tax return. But then on Schedule A, there's a line for sales made with or to people with resale certificates, and you deduct it back out. Okay. So you've got two different ways that might affect your business. Now, Katie mentioned, looking at the dates and verification of these different certificates, which is very valid. But also note that the resale certificates are issued by location, and every location needs its own certificate. So if you have multiple locations, we really need you to have multiple registrations and certificates. The resale certificates don't really expire. But like we said earlier, if you've closed out your business or that location, they're not valid anymore. They don't need to be used in that way. And they're only supposed to be used for things that you're actually reselling. It's not for things that you're using in your business. Like, for example, let's say you have an office and you'd like to buy some office furniture for your office in your store. Cool. You're not going to resell the office furniture. You're buying it. Don't use your resale certificate for that. Okay. You're going to have to pay sales tax on that. So don't present that to the supplier of the office furniture because that's not a valid use of a resale certificate. Katie, you got something you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I keep interrupting you, sorry, but
No,
things
you're
come to my
fine.
brain. Talking to various auditors on this subject, if you're going, for example, to a big box store like a Costco or Sam's or something like that to buy items for your business that you're going to be using, like Billy was just mentioning, or some furniture for your office or some paper, cleaning supplies for your building, and you're also buying things that are for resale, what our auditors would recommend is that you want to put those in two different purchases. Run through all your stuff that's for resale, use your resale certificate, you're not going to pay sales tax on that, and then pay, and then buy your stuff that you're going to be paying sales tax on, your items that you're going to be using. Don't put them on the same receipt, because if you get audited, that's going to be messy. You're going to owe some money.
And some of the bigger stores will let you bring in a copy of your resale certificate and they'll keep it on file on their system so that when you come in there and you are present your little store card to let you know that you're buying this for business or whatever, that it'll already be preloaded on there. But that's up to the store and how they want to do that. So I wouldn't say that's every place. Just be sure that you have done what you should do in order to do what's required to get the items exempt. Okay.
And Billy, isn't it true that not all businesses have to accept a resale certificate? I know I've always heard that Target doesn't do that. You can't use a resale certificate there.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the thing. We highly encourage businesses to accept legitimate exemptions like resale certificates, like nonprofit exemptions, like government exemptions, and things like that. But we don't have things in the law that make that actually required to do that. There's no penalty if you don't do it. But I would encourage every business to strongly consider honoring them because number one, I'll be honest with you, it's the right thing to do. That's what you really should do. I'm going to say it right now. So how about that? Now, besides me lecturing you, let me also say that as long as you have your documentation locked down and tight, you're not going to get in any trouble. Also, your competitor down the street that does honor their certificates is probably going to get a sale where you did not. So, you really ought to think about that. So, just help people through that situation, as far as that goes. We have a comment here in chat. It says, it came up as, you have not received a resale certificate. Okay. Well, then what you want to do is you want to give us a call or send us an email with your account number, and we'll take a look at your account. And assuming that we have everything that we need on there, we can ensure that you have a copy of your resale certificate. That's pretty easy. So thank you for doing that too. George, thank you for asking the question in the way that you asked it, because this is something that we get very commonly. Is there a link for the resale certificate application? Actually, here's your answer, sir. Your answer is this. When you file rather when you register for a sales tax account, that's the application. Okay. And that's what we're saying on there too. Dan, just put that out there. Thanks, Dan. You jumped right in there with all that kind of good stuff. Dan mentions also the streamlined sales tax exemption certificate, and marking it as resale there too. But you do have to include your Tennessee sales tax and ID, which means obviously you've got to be registered. You got to have a sales tax number with us. Okay. So registering for sales tax equals resale certificate. Okay. Because we get a lot of people that just say, I need a reseller certificate. Well, it's not quite like that. There's kind of a one hand feeds the other thing going on. You know what I mean? So you got to kind of do both. That's what you have to do. And the one thing that we want to make sure everybody understands is you really don't need to be registered for sales tax in Tennessee unless you're required to be registered with us. There are people sometimes that get in trouble for registering for sales tax and trying to invalidly use a resale certificate, just to have that piece of paper. And don't be that person, because if you're ever audited on that, there are substantial penalties and interests that go along with that. So just be careful, do the right thing, and you'll be fine. Okay. All right. Thanks for everybody jumping in on that one. So like we say on registering, the out-of-state dealers can register on TTAP or do that streamlined sales tax registration. If they do that, we're going to basically end up with this Tennessee sales tax account one way or the other. And like it says with the red eye in the top right corner, I cannot emphasize this enough. You will be liable for filing a sales tax return beginning from the date you open, and this is the date you say you open. Okay. Even if no sales are made during that period. So think about this, y'all. What you want to think about is, when am I going to say my business is going to quote open? So you're going to need a resale certificate to start buying items to stock your store, right? As an example. So if you say I'm going to start this thing up in the 1st of February, then we'll give you a certificate that says you have a resale certificate good for registration. And we have a registration certificate and a resale certificate. Okay. And you can take that resale certificate and start buying stuff started in February. Well, maybe you don't make your first sale till April. Okay. That's fine. But we're going to have a February sales tax return with 0 on it, a March sales tax return with 0 on it. Then finally, the April sales tax return will probably have sales on it since you're open at that point. Then you'll report that in money by the 20th of the next month. Okay. So in other words, when you turn the spigot on, it's on. Okay. And there's a requirement on that. And you may be filing zeros for a couple of months, but I would highly encourage you not to set up any accounts with us for any of our taxes until you really, really know you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Okay. If it's an idea that you have for a business, it's like, well, I think I'm going to sell widgets. I'm going to set me up a sales tax account today. Don't do it. Okay. Because you might think over the next few weeks, well, maybe I don't need to do all that and all this stuff, and I'm not really ready. But when you are ready to actively engage with us, do it. Okay. Let us know and we'll help you. All right. But just understand that when you turn the system on, it's on. And like Lance said, if you don't want the nasty grams from Nashville asking for $500 a pop, don't do it. And of course, if you get those, like I say, by mistake, you just forgot or whatever, please communicate with us. We'll make things right. It's okay. We can just tell you, and we'll make sure that you are not charged any more than what you absolutely have to pay. Typically, when you file late and you forgot to file a 0 return, the minimum penalty on that is $15 for every period that's late. and a very, very small amount of interest. So we're not talking about tons of money. It's not $500. It may be like $15 and change. But at the same time, if you'll let us know what's going on, we'll work with you on it. Again, our goal here is to make you not pay the government any more money than you absolutely have to. Okay, very good. So for filing, yeah, I just mentioned this. So the tax filing for sales tax is due on the 20th day of the month that follows the period. Most of the time, you're filing sales tax on a monthly basis. So by the 20th of the next month, by the way, if that falls on a holiday or a week or weekend, then you get the next business day. Okay, a little bonus there, right? There's not an option for a filing extension, but let me give you a little advice here too. So be that taxpayer that goes out and does your sales tax, your franchise and excise tax, your all the other taxes in a very timely manner. And what you can do is actually go out and report your sales. And we'll use this as an example. Let's say you were open in December and you know that the sales tax is due on the 20th of January. Okay. So as I look at my little calendar, that is a Saturday. Oh, I get to the 22nd. I'm so lucky. Okay. Get a couple bonus days. So should I, number one, do everything on Monday, the 22nd, and hope my 10-tap password goes through and cross my fingers and all that? Or would it not be a better idea on the 10th of January, today that we're doing this recording, to go ahead and calculate the amount of taxes due? And then when I get to the payment screen and it says that I owe, I don't know, $102, something like that, then I put my payment information in and I say, hey, on the in this case, 22nd being the due date, take $102 from my checking account to pay my taxes so that it's done on time. That way you don't pay us early. You can pay us early and that's fine, no problem, but you don't have to. You can schedule your payment, okay? And we call it warehousing your payment. So we set that aside and we won't process that payment until the date that you tell us to when you put that on the 10-tap system. So kind of a helpful hint there. It gets your tax obligation taken care of. You don't have to think about it anymore. You kind of put that in a file and you're ready to go on. Okay. And then you're all not up late at night on the very last day of the month or the last day of the filing period trying to get that thing in. Okay. So just saying that is super important. And Dan, you mentioned a way to get a resale certificate out there on 10-tap too. And thank you for putting that out there. And oh, Ms. Hopkins, you found it. Very awesome. Good deal. Glad you found your certificate. Okay. All right. That's it. And we have other webinars about filing as well too. So how do you file? You go out here and Lance will probably talk about this a little bit more too. But when you sign into 10-tap and you're looking at your sales tax account in our example right here, there's a link in red there says view file returns. It's pointed in red, file, amend, return for the previous period. So if you do that, a list of returns comes up. You pick the period you want to work on and you file it or you amend it. Okay. And then Lance accurately mentioned the yes and no questions. One of them here, the very first one that's going to hit you right in the face is, are you going to use software from a vendor? Almost guaranteed the answer on that is always going to be no. Okay. There are a few larger companies that choose software vendors to do their sales tax transactions, and they can basically, by clicking yes, they can upload a file with us instead of doing the regular 10-tap thing. And so if you have lots of locations and stuff like that, you probably do want to do that, right? But in your situation as a new business, that answer is going to be no every single time. Okay. Other taxes. Okay, so I'm going to take a breath here for a second and ask you guys if you have any more questions about sales tax. Lance and what is your name again? Katie. Thanks, Katie. Yeah. Do y'all have anything that you want to bring up at all about anything?
I'm glad you're taking a breath here, because I will say it can get very confusing for your brain to switch gears when you're talking about different taxes, between business tax and sales tax and who's exempt from what and all that. So I would just advise everyone to make sure you're compartmentalizing these different taxes as you're learning about them.
I want to tell a funny story too, Katie. So Katie and Lance knows this too. We have sent out a lot of letters to businesses that were already registered saying, hey, this business tax thing changed to 100,000 from 10,000, and you need to contact us and let us know what's going on. I won't belabor that a lot, but we've had people that have contacted our office and different county clerk offices saying, well, this letter I got said I didn't owe sales tax anymore. No, it did not. It said you didn't owe business tax anymore. So like Katie is saying, these things, they wear their own hats, you know, so we have to keep them in their right slots, if you know what I'm saying. Well, if there's nothing else, and I don't see any more chat comments and all that, we'll talk about some other taxes. All right. So moving right along. Oh, wait a minute. Mandy has a question. Let's do it. Mandy, if I have a medical service business and don't sell things, I don't think I need sales tax. Do I still file? We'd have to know more about your medical service business, Mandy, but if you're just providing a service to people in the medical industry, it's very, very likely that you don't owe sales tax. Okay. Usually, if you're selling products, then you are subject to that, even if they're medical products. But like we said earlier, some medical products are actually exempt in the law. But anyway, if you're just doing medical services, chances are you're not subject to sales tax in Tennessee. Okay.
And
All right.
some medical services are exempt from business tax as well. There could be, depending on what you do, exactly what you
Mhm.
do,
Mhm.
may not owe business tax. So you may be one of the few lucky ones, like I said, that doesn't,
Right.
where Tennessee
And,
taxes are not.
typically the ones in business tax that are exempt are the ones that have a licensure under the health boards, like they're a doctor or they're a mental health counselor that's licensed by the Department of Health and stuff
So
like
she
that.
just said mobile ultrasound. I'd have to check, because I don't know off the top of my head if ultrasound is one of the medical services that's exempt from business tax as well. But you can also check our manual on that. I'm gonna
Yeah,
look into
check
that
on
right
that.
now, though.
Yeah, Mandy, and we might look at that too. But if we don't get back with you on that, send us an email. We'll give you our email address at the end, and we'll research it just to be sure, because sometimes we like to dig a little bit and just to double check ourselves on those. But it sounds to me like you might be okay. All right. Okay. So if you thought you were confused before, boy, do I have something for you. Franchise and excise taxes. Okay. So the first thing I want to point out is the blue box at the very bottom where it says who is liable. Okay. Ignore all that stuff at the top for a second. Okay, let's look in the blue box. All for-profit foreign and domestic entities, chartered, qualified, or registered in Tennessee or doing business in Tennessee must file the franchise and excise return and pay a minimum tax, which by the way is $100. Okay. So what does that mean? That's LLCs, corporations, LLPs, people like that. It is not sole proprietors. Okay. So if you're going to be a sole proprietor or you are a sole proprietor, take a deep breath right now, go get a cup of coffee. You're good because you're not going to pay a franchise and excise tax. Okay. And then, of course, in the boxes at the very top, we have graphically said what a franchise tax is, what an excise tax is, and then basically they're both reported together on the franchise and excise tax return. Common question. I don't have a franchise. I just have my own business. No, that's not what that means. It's just the terminology that talks about the way that tax is charged. You don't have to have a franchise. Okay. It is, it's just the terminology we use in state law. Okay. And then of course, you know, we see here the due dates and the dates of certain required payments. Franchise and excise tax requires quarterly payments throughout the year, just like the IRS requires quarterly payments for small businesses also at the federal level. Okay. So you may want to look at that in our franchise and excise manual, which we put a link there, and under that circle near the top, it talks about the webinar and the manual, where you can actually get us help on that too. One quick thing here too, right side of the slide, sort of near that timeline, deadline to file with extension 11/15. That's a big deal because a lot of times businesses will request an extension of time to file with the IRS. We honor that extension. Okay. We're good with that. So if you say that you have a valid extension, as long as you've made your payments with us quarterly and done what you should do, we're going to honor that and you're all good. Okay. You don't have to file an extension with us at all. We'll just honor the federal. Okay. So again, very, very basic, really a hairy tax, to be honest with you. It's sort of deep. So you want to contact us if you have a lot of questions on it too. Honestly, too, just being really honest with you, there's a ton of people, small business owners, that if you set up that LLC as an example, that they just turn over the filing of a franchise and excise return over to their tax preparer or their accountant who does their federal form, and they do that for them. I'm not telling you that's what you need to do. You can do it as far as that goes, and we know lots of people do that. I'm just offering that to you just for general information. Okay. All right. So you can get that extension, like we talked about. And that's the criteria for us to honor the extension. And it would talk about the federal extension here towards the bottom and where that's at in the manual as well. Excuse me, I'm very sorry. The minimal tax filing, the minimum tax is $100. So if you're a small business and you haven't had very much activity, you might actually be able to go onto our TTAP system without logging on and going into the tax screen. We're under file a return, and to file the $100 tax at that particular spot. The reason that's a good idea is because it is super easy. It cuts out a lot of the gobbledygook in some of those schedules that are required on the regular franchise and excise filing. So, you know, under the IRS guidelines, if some of you are familiar with the 1040 short form with the federal government, or the EZ form or the A form, whatever they call it these days. So this is sort of like that for franchise and excise tax for a lot of businesses that just, you know, sort of set up things and really don't have a lot of high dollar activity or a lot of assets in Tennessee that would give rise to a tax of more than $100. So think about that as an option. Okay. If that applies to you. And the estimated payments, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Notice, you know, the combined liability has to be $5,000 or more. And then, and that's for the prior year and the current year as measured by that's, well, it just says here, required to make estimated payments when there's a combined F&E, franchise and excise tax liability, $5,000 or more after credits for both the prior year and the current year. So if you don't meet that, you don't have to make the quarterly payments. So even if you are a newbie, so to speak, chances of you owing $5,000 in franchise and excise tax, pretty low, pretty low. So you may not have to make the quarterly payments at all. But anyway, here's the information if you need it. So let's discuss the other 24 different types. No, let's don't. We do not have time to do all of the taxes. Oh my goodness. So if you're operating a restaurant in Tennessee, that we're selling liquor by the drink, there's a liquor by the drink tax. If you sell tires in Tennessee, there's a tire tax. If you sell motor fuel, there's a motor fuel tax. If you sell tobacco, there's a tobacco tax, and the
There's a new
list goes
hemp
on and on.
tax, a new hemp tax too.
Yes, there's a tax on cannabinoids that is out there. It's an extra 6%. And oh my gosh, it goes on forever. Okay. But we have all that information on our website. All the taxes are listed. Um, and we're just glad to help you when you have these different questions. Again, it's sort of a bear. It's a lot to go through. But if you encounter some of this stuff, let us know so that we can help you. But I will say this, most of you are going to be engaged in getting a business license at least, okay? And if you're selling stuff, tangible personal property, setting up a sales tax account. If you have an LLC or maybe a corporation, then that's franchise and excise tax. Those are the big three. Those are the three we see most of. I'd say 95% are one or two or three of those taxes. Okay. The other taxes are very unusual and not frequent. Okay. Katie, you had something you want to
Billy,
say?
I just wanted to mention, yeah, I answered Mandy directly. She's the one who had a question that came to just us panelists. She's got a medical business, mobile ultrasound. Does she need business tax, sales tax? I thought I'd discuss my answer to her with everyone just because it's
Oh yeah, go ahead.
kind of
Sure,
walks you
absolutely.
through kind of your brain, how your thought process goes. So as we mentioned, that's a medical service. So medical services are not subject to sales tax. We just went over that. I said, I don't know about that with business tax. I'd have to look it up. Well, diagnostic imaging, which is what ultrasound falls under, it took me a minute to find it, but is a service that is not subject to business tax. So bam, you got no business tax requirement, no business license and business tax requirement, no sales tax. Now, if you were set up as a LLC, Mandy, you'd need F&E though. So that, right. And then also there might be some professional license involved there that you'd need to check with Department of Commerce and Insurance or medical boards with. I don't know anything about all that, but in terms of taxes, looks like you're not on the hook for business tax or sales tax unless if you started selling something, like if you sold I don't know. I'm trying to think of something you could sell along that goes along with the ultrasound, framed prints of an ultrasound, something, that might be subject, but we're just talking about the service of providing ultrasounds and that. So anyways, there's the answer for that.
Oh, thanks, Katie. That's really good. So, and Lance answered Emily's question about sole proprietors. Right. Sole proprietors are not subject to franchise and excise tax. Just again, going back to the very first thing we talked about registration and how things are very important to get them right up front. If you need that LLC or you think that's the best way for you to go, then you're going to end up paying franchise and excise tax. Okay. And that's okay. It just is what it is. I think for a lot of you, it would probably be the minimum $100, quite honestly. But it is every year. By the way, just to let you know, when you get out of business, when you close down, you do need to mark that franchise and excise return as a final return because you're going to have to get a tax clearance certificate to be given over to the Secretary of State's office to close out with them. So there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts and handoffs in this whole deal too. So it's not that easy. Sole proprietors, pretty easy. Okay. But there are some other issues here too. So I want to talk about delinquencies here, like it says on this screen. The penalty and interest do apply to anything that's truly delinquent. It is a 5% penalty for up to a 5-month period, which is 25%. And the interest, which I don't know the rate off the top of my head, I know it exceeds 10% right now, is high. So again, if you don't owe much money, it's not a lot of money, but still, again, don't be late. Be on time. You know, don't pay us any more money than you have to. Isn't that weird coming from a government person? I'm just telling you, I've done this for a long time, and I want you guys to save every penny that you possibly can. And that's one of the reasons we do these workshops and webinars and stuff like that. So everybody kind of knows what's going on and that we are out there in front of you, showing you how we can help you. And so, but you got to help yourself too. You got to use that calendar. You got to be on time. You got to not put stuff off to the last minute. Just saying, kind of sound like your mom, right? But you know, yeah, sometimes we need that in our lives, and that's what we're here for too. And of course, our collections division spends every business day trying to collect money from people that haven't filed and paid properly. So don't be that person. They're good folks. They do their jobs. That's what they're paid to do. But make them sad. Don't get in their account. Don't get in their queue to work. Okay. Just get your stuff done. You're good. Okay. And of course, if you overpay us, we'll refund your money to you, and we'll issue a credit that you can use on another period or whatever. Okay, so there's definitely room for that kind of thing as well, and we talk to people about that each and every day. So we're glad to help you on that if that ever happens to you. All right, this is good. You don't have to listen to me anymore. Thank goodness. So, Katie, I forgot. Are we taking a break or we're motoring on? What are we doing?
We were going to do a little 5-minute break here, and then we'll motor on through the rest of it till.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So let's do a 4-minute break just to because I like numbers to be. We'll come back at 10:35
Okay.
Central, 11:35 Eastern. Let's give a couple minutes
Okay.
to step away.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
All right, everyone. By my watch, it looks like it is 10:35, so we'll get started again.
Hey, Lance, before you
Yes.
get started, I want to say someone sent me a chat. I think it might have come to just me about like, is there a way to know if all of my accounts, if I'm good to go? I've just recently started. I've got tax accounts. How do I know that I'm in good standing? I don't know anything. Haven't missed a filing. Ryan, Lance is about to go into TTAP. The best way, you can always call us, especially to make sure you've got access to all of your accounts in TTAP. But the best way is to make sure you've got TTAP and make sure you have access to all your accounts. And then he'll show you here in a few minutes. It's an at a glance. It's kind of like having online banking where you can go into your bank account and hopefully see that you're not in the red, right? But he's about to go into that. I just wanted to address that because it was a really good question that came over to me, and I'll shut up now. Let's talk about TTAP and the other resource.
Sounds good. Thanks, Katie. Billy, did you have anything to add? I'm sorry.
Excuse me, I had nothing to add. Did we address the question about the integrated software options that was in chat?
I don't think so.
There's not really anything integrated that allows for automatic payment. So you guys would have to schedule your payment in TTAP. I'm not sure if like commercial software that's out there will do that for you. Like if it's going to do the downloads and actually do the automatic filing. But most of you are small business people and you're not going to be engaged in that. So unfortunately, there's not going to be anything that's going to automatically do it. I think that's basically the answer to your question. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Billy. All right, guys. So you've weathered a storm of information so far, and I'm going to tell you, give you a little good advice and good news. It does get easier from here. Um, what I'm about to go over is just simply the resources. You're in business now. Or you might be starting, just getting off the ground. This section is going to help you tremendously. Where the sales tax, the business tax, and even the other taxes was a good drill down and showing the information regarding each individual tax. This is going to be a good overview of where you can find information readily. Now, before we go on, let me tell you, I am a huge supporter of TTAP. It is one of the greatest innovations that has come along in so many years. I've been with the state since 2001, and I've seen a lot of changes come and go. But I am here to tell you, TTAP is here to stay, and that is nothing but good news. TTAP is easy to manage. It's simple. It is the best part is you have 100% control over your account at all times. So we're going to get into this a little bit, and we'll surely get into TTAP. Okay. So as we're looking at the resources overview, again, TTAP, what does it do for me? You can register all the tax accounts that's been mentioned today, electronic filing for all the mentioned tax accounts, scheduling payments. You can warehouse payments to come out at a certain time. This works well. I've had taxpayers call in and ask about they're about to go out of the country on vacation or a business trip. Can they go ahead and schedule this payment? We walk them through the process. It's simple and life savings. Automatic correction of common errors. Guys, we all make mistakes. Most of which seems to be mathematical errors when it comes to sales tax, business tax returns. I'm happy to say that those have basically been eradicated as we go in, used to on the good old paper form, we would print off and we would go through longhand, as we call it. We would always have the question, when do you know when to round up and when to keep what you have? The system does everything for you. All you have to know is your gross sales, and it takes it from there, literally. There are a few other things as far as exemptions, the amount of exemptions that you may have taken in when dealing with sales tax or business tax, things of that nature, but all that information is already at your disposal. Okay. Amending returns, let's say that you forgot to add in some returns, or maybe you looked at dealing with a sales tax return and you was up crunching numbers late one night and you forgot that a amount on the gross is actually not supposed to be there. It's for another month. You can go in, you can amend that return, no problem. As I said, you are at 100% control of your account. You can access returns, certificates, and letters. I believe, Ms. Hopkins, you've already seen that feature in action. Just while we were in this class, she was able to go on and retrieve her certificate just by a few, I'm sorry, just by a few little directions given by Dan. Didn't take her very long. And guys, the best part is anything that you do on TTAP is there to stay, and it's at your disposal. We get a lot of requests for, I need a copy of this return or that return. You can retrieve those by just simply going on to TTAP and looking at previous returns. They will always be there, okay? So needless to say, I'm a big supporter of TTAP. The TTAP stands for Tennessee Taxpayer Access Point. Okay, it has not only your sales tax, your business tax, your franchise, and all the other accounts, but it also has how-to videos. Some very intuitive, very well laid out how-to videos. It gives you information, and you can see it here in this slide. Just general information about TTAP, logons, registrations, payments, tax returns. All of these. I will tell you this. Whenever you first begin your adventure into the business world, when you are about to apply for that first account, whether it be sales tax, business tax, or franchise, do yourself a favor, go ahead, set up your TTAP account first. That way, everything that you do is through TTAP, okay? It's already there. It's already connected. You'll have a much easier time, okay? How-to videos, I'm a big fan of these. There is so much of what has already been covered today on those how-to videos. And I will say this, in training new hires, a lot of times I like to set them down and let them watch those how-to videos because I want them to understand how it feels to be on that side of the desk. So can't say enough good things about those. Okay. Now, I want to take you on a small tour. Okay, I'm going to share my screen at this time. And hopefully let's go there. Okay. All right, so we have, as you're looking here, we have the Tennessee Department of Revenue webpage homepage. This is chock full of all kinds of information, okay, regarding setting up accounts, anything from news and publications, taxes, an overall general information smorgasbord, okay? Now, on this portion, what I would like to do is take you on a trip of how to set up your TTAP, okay? And it's simply just a few clicks away. You'll click on TTAP, of course. Let's click on that as I was previewing it earlier. Once you click on the TTAP, that red banner icon, you're going to come to this page. Now, being a brand new person to TTAP, you're not going to have the username and password. You'll simply click on Create a Logon, and it's going to take you through just a few pages of general information. You'll set up username, password, and it'll also ask you for a verification method. Okay, and there's a list that you can choose from. One of the most popular I find is, and it seems like that everyone either chooses the email option, and what will happen is each time that you log in, you'll be prompted to, they will send you a verification code to your chosen method, whether it be email, text, or even an app. Okay, so very simple. Once you get all of this done, you'll simply go in, you'll set up your accounts as needed. Let's see if I can get back. Stop sharing for just a moment. As we continue to the next slide, it's going to show us just a really drilled down basic preview of the Tennessee TTAP homepage. So looking at this fictitious taxpayer, you can see that he's already set up business tax. He's already set up franchise and excise tax. What the majority of control lies within this red box that you see here. From favorites to summary, right now you're on the summary page. That's going to show all the taxes that he is accountable for, that he has access for. Okay, Action Center, that is where you'll go into to find certificates, messages, anything, any type of correspondence that we are trying to get in touch with you or sending out to you. Okay, settings and more. More drills into a broader world. Okay, here we see the action page, the action tab. You'll see there's 7 unread messages. Now this could be anything from, hey, we see that you forgot to file your return, or hey, there is this going on your account, you have a credit. Down below, you'll see a $15 balance due. It looks like someone may have forgot to file a 0 return, and they've got a nasty gram from Nashville. So this is just a friendly reminder, it's out there. And we love this because it has given such a easy access to our taxpayers. Guys, you know yourself, you've got enough headaches without having to go through layer upon layer upon layer. This, whenever there's something that comes through on TTAP, we're going to make it as easy as possible for you. Okay, here, just evidence, there's a make a payment. Okay, if there's a $15 penalty, instead of going back and going through the account, you can just simply click on make a payment. It'll take you to that payment method. Okay. Sales and use tax return needs to be filed, so it's giving you a heads up what's coming next on your plate. Okay. The more tab, this is, as I said, this gives a broader information and control base for your account. You can do anything through manage accounts, such as registering new accounts, registering a new location, gaining access to accounts. Guys, let me tell you, let me stop right there and just a little side note on the on giving. Let's say that you have a CPA or a bookkeeper that's going to also have a third party access to your account. Make sure always maintain master control of your account. Okay, do not give master control to anyone other than you. Okay, so everyone should have master access. Payments, that gives a listing of past payments that you've sent in. Okay, and most of the time, whenever you send in a return, they are processed within anywhere, depending on the type of payment, the way of paying, whether it be a bank draft or a ACH debit through credit card. They're processed anywhere between 24 and 48 hours, depending upon factors such as day-to-day filing, as far as timing. Did you file it at 11 o'clock on a Friday night? Did you file on Christmas Eve? Things of that nature. So take in consideration, but it does happen rather quickly. Additional services, one of the great things, as I already said, you can print your certificates right from TTAP. Okay, you click on that and you say, well, I know I've got a sales tax number. This happens a lot, and I don't see my certificate anywhere. That's when you get on the phone with us. Okay, contact us and let us know, because what's probably happened is the account was set up prior to you setting up TTAP, and a lot of times that information doesn't port over as properly as it should. So we can correct that, and we can get that return posted to your account that way, or I'm sorry, that certificate posted to your account. That way it's yours forevermore. You can always go back and reprint as many copies as you need. Okay. View letters right down here. You'll also see any of the corresponding letters, and that's, as Billy mentioned before, the certificate of registration that we display somewhere in our business, the resale certificate that we display, any other type of letter certificates will be found there. Okay. Also, you'll be able to change, let's say that you're a sole proprietorship and you're ABC vending, but you decide, you know what, that just doesn't sound right. That's not modern enough. Let's go to XYZ vending. You know, you can change the names. You can change your addresses right here. All of that, once again, it's all under your control. Okay, miscellaneous help. This is just some good information to pass along to you as far as the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development, better known as ECD. These are tools readily available for your use. Also, the Tennessee Small Business Development Center, great bunch of folks. I can't brag on these enough. Being a new business owner, please familiarize yourself with these resources. You may not ever need them, but know that they're at your disposal. SCORE Association, they have been around for a very long time. Used to when we had in-person workshops back in the day in the pre-COVID era. We had a representative from SCORE that would come occasionally, and they really, from the heart, just want to be there to help folks. And guys, it doesn't cost a penny just to go to their website and see what they have to offer. Okay, and you can see their description here. It's a volunteer business counselors, advisors, and mentors. They offer free to low cost counseling depending upon the amount, the severity of the counseling throughout the U.S. and its territories. Okay, they have everything to offer from a startup roadmap to simple steps for exiting your business. They can tell you how to shut a business down. Okay, all of that information they have to offer, as well as the Small Business Administration. I believe that's one of the most commonly used. And you find their website there as well. Everything's from business guides to local assistance. It's all at your fingertips. Now, contact us. We have, since COVID, we have went to a much larger call center. Okay, we have tons of employees at your disposal. I'm one of which. Whenever you call, you may get me. Okay. Also, and I'm going to give you just a little side note right here. Let me share this screen one more time. I want to give you your money's worth, so to speak. This is another portion that I'm very proud of. On our website, and we've all, I believe everyone in here has probably called the Tennessee Department of Revenue at one time or another, and you may be placed in a 2-minute queue or a 5-minute queue, depending upon the time of year. There are peak times that all representatives are truly busy. And the reason we're busy, I want to tell you this, it's not necessarily the volume of calls, it's the severity of the call itself. Some folks, they really need a little more tutelage than anyone else. So we may be on the phone with that taxpayer a little longer. And it may not be where you can wait online, wait on the line and wait for that next representative. If you want to, and I would suggest this, it's a great feature. It's been around for a few years now. If you'll just go to our questions tab here, revenue help, click on there. There is, if I wanted to know something about paying sales tax, it's going to bring up all types of results. Now, of course, you phrase it the way that you want to. It's going to bring up a ton of information about that. Some questions that you have has already been answered. I guarantee it. You can find it here. Now, if you can't find it, okay, and I'm going to go back just one page to where we were. If you cannot find it, let's say that you've exhausted every resource, I'm just not finding the answer that I need. You can go down here to the bottom and click submit a request. Okay. That's going to lead you through an information gathering of sorts, a few questions. You're going to submit your question to a group of tax professionals. Okay. That ticket is going to come to a live person right then and there after you click submit. We answer those within a 24-hour period, okay, most of which are answered pretty quick, much faster than 24 hours. I've seen some answer as quick as 30 minutes, some maybe in a couple of hours, but we will get to your question, okay? All right, let's get back. We are on every avenue of social media. Facebook, Twitter, or X as it's called now. You can sign up for email updates. I really suggest this, okay? YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, or just our website, okay? I would suggest as many of those as possible, okay? Certainly Twitter and certainly Facebook. We give a lot of information out, and there's nothing that we withhold from the general public. We want to be open. We want to get you the best knowledge. We want to get you the knowledge as fast as possible. Once it is agreed upon by the powers that be, once that procedure changes or something comes up, we let you know, okay? Also, we have, as I mentioned before, we have a call center. In my opinion, it's the best of any states. We've got a lot of kudos, a lot of positive feedback. Contact us through this telephone number. Okay, we'll be happy to assist you. Now, again, if you get any information that you don't quite understand, whether it be through the mail, whether it be a message on TTAP, our knee-jerk reaction is to do something about it. Let that first reaction be, if you do not know, if you don't fully understand it, give us a call, right? Contact us through one of these means. We are here to help you, okay? There is no need of wondering when you have all of these folks that's just waiting to help you, okay? All right, and that is my little portion. I'm going to turn it back over to Katie.
Thank you so much, Lance. You're a wealth of information. People are lucky when they call in and get you on the line. Any of our people, obviously. I might be a little partial to Lance. I'm going to actually go, hold on, switch myself back over to be able to do this. I'm going to show you a few more places on our website where there's some great resources. Hang with me a sec. I have not seen anything. Do y'all see, second, do you see my revenue homepage right now?
Yes.
Still?
Yes, still do.
Okay. I was confused about something. All right, so here we go. What was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought. Oh, one thing I wanted to touch on that Lance was talking about, and going back to the question that Ryan had for me about seeing all of your, seeing everything at a glance. I want to reiterate, once you get into TTAP, Lance did mention if you haven't yet signed up for anything, do it from there. But if you've already got tax accounts and you've got a TTAP account and you go into your TTAP and you don't see your business tax account, you don't see your sales tax account, it doesn't automatically attach your account to your tax account to your TTAP unless you've set it up within TTAP. That might be kind of confusing. All that to say, if you don't see one of your tax accounts, reach out to us, or you can go to our help center that Lance pointed out to you there at Revenue Help, and what you're going to search for is gaining access to your account. It's just not an automatic process always that when you first log into TTAP and set up that username and password and authentication, you'll get in there and you're not going to see anything. That's because you have to gain access to your accounts. Once you do that, then you've got everything at a glance. I want to call your attention to a webinar Can you tell I like our webinars? We had a webinar just last month about what you can do in TTAP, making changes in TTAP. It was kind of a tour of TTAP, every little thing you can click on in TTAP and what you can do in there. Great resource. On that note, from our homepage here, tn.gov/revenue, I'm going to show you where all the webinars are. You're going to scroll down to Taxpayer Education and Outreach. For today's workshop, you came here to New Business Workshops. That's where this PDF is. That's where you registered for today. Well, I'm going to take you over here to tax webinars. We have a tax webinar on the last Tuesday of every month. It's free. You do have to register for it. Let me click here. You can see a list of our upcoming events here, and here's where you register for the current month's webinar, which again, like we said, is business tax. It's always on the last Tuesday of the month, unless I think one time in the last 3 years it hasn't been on the last Tuesday of the month, and that was last month because the last Tuesday of the month was like the day after Christmas or something like that. So you can see here upcoming webinars this month, business tax basics. Next month, we're going to be talking about this new hemp-based cannabinoid tax. In March, recent F&E tax law changes, so on and so forth. Those can be subject to change. Sometimes a topic can kind of trump the other things we've got in there, and we'll move things around. But what we've got scheduled as the current month's webinar will never change. So you can see there how to register for that. If you haven't already, and you're a new business, I would say to register for that business tax webinar. Scrolling down here, you can see we've got a webinar video library. At this point, we have 55 videos in here, all the different webinars that we've had. Trying to think, I just mentioned the TTAP one, and let's oh wait, that wasn't. Let's see. The last month it was the webinar I was talking about was changing. Where is that one? Well, anyways, you can just look. You can see all the different webinars here if you want to search all of them. You see them all at a glance right here. I would go through there and just have all kinds of fun watching the webinars, and you can also download the PDF that goes along with them. Another place that I want to take you that's an incredible resource we have mentioned multiple times are tax manuals. Those have not always been around. We used to have these tax guides that had great information in them, but it was basically just a regurgitation of tax law, which not all of our brains work in that way. These new tax manuals that we have developed over the last few years really put it into layman's terms, real life terms, give you real life examples. I'm going to take you over to those. I'm going to go back to the top here to tn.gov/revenue. There's a couple different ways to get here, but I'm going to go by clicking on tax resources and then tax guidance. From here, you can see lots of different options. You can see our law, revenue rules. It's tax manuals where I'm going to take you to. And those links that are in the PDF of today's workshop presentation, they take you directly over to the manual place. So just to show you the business tax manual here, you can see all the different manuals that we have. I will tell you that industry specific manuals, that kind of expands to a few different specific ones, industry specific for nonprofits, short-term rental units, this new one about automobile dealers. But let's click on the business tax manual. You can see prior versions if you wanted to click here. We're going to look at this current version. That's where sometimes the versions, if you're watching this as a video later on, we may have an updated pages and stuff in our manual. So let's click on the manual. We use these tax manuals internally. We use them for training. There's not a day that goes by that I don't open up the multiple tax manuals multiple times. It's impossible to hold all of these facts in our brains at all times. I don't know, Billy, you come pretty close. You've got a lot of it in your brain, but we have to use these. They're great for internal purposes for us. We highly recommend, if you are a business, at least familiarizing yourself with the information that is in each of our manuals that pertains to a tax type that you have. So you don't have to read all, 171 pages of this manual, but I would peruse it and just look through, just look through the table of contents here. I don't want to make you dizzy, but I would definitely recommend going through here and just seeing, something might jump out to you. You'd say, "Oh my goodness, I'm a video programmer. There's something special in here for video programmers." So, for example, so check out our manuals. That's all I'm saying there. They're fantastic. We're going to go back now, and I'm going to show you a couple other places on our website. Our general tax pages, you can either click on the tile here, taxes, or you can click here, taxes. Let's click here. These are basic. A lot of this information is what you're going to see in the manuals or revenue help, but it's kind of like presented in a different way. Let's click on sales tax, for example. Here, you're going to see a menu here on the left. You first see an overview of sales tax, and then you're going to see due dates and tax rates, registration. What about the local sales tax rate? Billy, when he was talking about sales tax, said that there's a link over to seeing what the local tax rates are. Here it is. Single article. If that didn't blow your mind in the 60 seconds Billy gave you an overview of it, more information here about single article tax, exemptions and credits, and that breaks down even further. Information for marketplace sellers and marketplace facilitators here, so on and so forth. On all of our tax pages are going to be specific to that tax, but they all are going to have a link over to tax guidance and forms. Tax guidance will take you over to the tax manual for that specific tax type. Any other manuals, any articles that we've got, some other interesting information, important notices about that tax. So check out the tax page for any tax types that you are going to be liable for. Knowledge is power here. You don't want to end up not understanding your taxes, and it's not that complicated once you start diving into it. And now it can be. I don't want to throw you off here and say, I mean, F&E tax, it can be complicated. There are aspects to sales tax that can get complicated, but all of these resources will break it down for you in the most simplest terms. And again, we're always here to help you understand it more. Just one more place I'm going to take you to. You can get to it from this top bar here, but under how do I, those are the most frequent questions that we get. How do I go to TTAP? How do I find a form? How do I register a business? So on and so forth. These are just quick links over to a lot of the common functions that you're going to have questions about when it is time. Now, I know this is a new business workshop, but all good things must come to an end. We see a lot of issues, especially that end up in our collections, and not a pretty thing when a business is not closed down properly. So even though you're just now starting and don't want to think about closing yet, it's probably going to come at some point in time, right? So just know that when that time does come, this is a good resource for what you're going to need to properly close out all of your tax accounts. You don't want to be in a lurch of owing money because you didn't close down properly and having to deal with that headache, right? When you retire, you don't want to be dealing with that. One more place I'm going to show you, tons of information on here. Familiarize yourself with our whole website, but from our homepage, I'm going to take you to the bottom down here into the footer of the main homepage, and under Contact Us, lots of information there. Office locations. We are open limited hours and limited days in some of our regional offices. We're going to walk you through whether or not you need to, that your problem can be handled or issue can be handled just via phone call, or whether you need to make an appointment to go in person, maybe to one of our regional offices. But here are just all of our different phone numbers that might be helpful to you. So I'm going to go back over and hang out on this page for a minute so that you have that support email. When Lance took you over to Revenue Help and showed you how you could submit a ticket there, submit a request, emailing this email address that you see on your screen on the bottom left, revenue.support@tn.gov, that takes your email, your question to the exact same place as if you were to submit a ticket on that, submit a request on Revenue Help. It goes to the same group of tax experts within Department of Revenue who are going to answer your question if you email it or submit a request online. And again, there's our tax helpline. So I've been talking so much, I'm not looking over at the chat. We've got a few more minutes left. Billy, Dan, Lance, is there anything that y'all have seen in chat while I've been talking that would be good to bring up to everybody or to elaborate on, or anything you want to add?
Looks like things have been addressed. Do you think so, Lance? Looks like we've touched on these.
Yeah, it looks like someone just, as we were getting back on, looks like someone asked a question. My understanding correctly that as a single member LLC, I'll be required to have 3 business licenses: state, Davidson County, and Nashville business license. So the business license, you'll only need 2, and up to 2, I should say. Correct myself. If you're in the city limits, you'll have to have both county and city. Okay. If you're in the county only, which I'm talking your business location, you'll only need county. Okay.
Right, but for this guy right here, if he's in Davidson County, it's sort of the weird anomaly where they do both. So it's actually one license, but it is a Davidson County / Nashville license. It's a combo license.
I'm sorry, I misspoke, Billy. Thanks.
Yeah, that's okay. It's just that this particular person happens to be in Nashville.
Memphis Shelby and Nashville Davidson are like that. I'm in Chattanooga. If I start a business, I'm going to go to the city of Chattanooga and Hamilton County, both.
Right.
So.
Right.
And I see what you're saying, Gareth. 3 business licenses. There's just not there's not a separate state license. It's just a local license. The way the state ties in with it, I came back to this slide just to reiterate and help you maybe make sense of it. That business license, if you have a standard license, so at this point, grossing over 100. Where we come into play is that standard license is linked in with your state's business tax account. Look at that bottom row there. Let me see if I can get fancy here and put like a little arrow on it or something. I don't know. Laser pointer. We're looking at this. Can y'all see my little laser?
Mm-hmm.
See that? Yay.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
right.
Fancy.
So we're looking at this row right here. So this is where a business license ties in with the state, so to speak, or taxes, is when you gross over 100 and have that standard business license. You are going to be required to have a business tax account, and paying and filing for that business tax account is what will send information over to your local clerk that they can renew that license. It's a little complicated. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. That's why Billy loves business tax so much.
Love business tax.
Yeah.
So. Hope you don't believe that. Just saying.
I hope that makes sense to you, Gareth. Hopefully, yes. So there is no state license. It's just a local and a county, and they both tie in to us at the state level when they're at that standard license and when you're paying and filing to renew your license. What else? What else, y'all? I don't see any. Might have missed something. Wanda, you say you're also in Chattanooga. Yeah, I love Chattanooga. I'm from Middle Tennessee, but kind of new to Chattanooga. If we missed your question, which is quite likely, or if you have a more in-depth, I think there was a question earlier that somebody said that somebody asked where we thought, sometimes it's not an easy answer. There's about 20 questions we got to go back and forth to hone in and figure out exactly how to help you. That's a good time to call us or email us at revenue.support so we can kind of work with you to figure out if it's more account specific or specific to your situation. If we didn't answer your question, please reach out to us. We want to take care of you. I'm going to go back to that last slide 43. There's our information. Well, if nobody has any more questions.
We did have a couple pop in.
Up. Okay.
So Cyril asked about a small business LLC providing a service that grossed under 100,000. Cyril, if you're a LLC, you owe franchise and excise tax. It's $100 at least every year. So that one will go ahead and set that one aside. You asked about whether you're required to pay business tax or sales tax. Individually, business tax, you look at the 100,000. If you're under the 100,000, all you need is the minimal activity license. You do not pay business tax. Okay. Sales tax depends on what you're selling, and the in-state registration amount was $4,800 or $400 a month, not 100,000. Okay. And Katie's showing you right there. Okay. So there you go. And then if you're doing a service now, and let's be sure you what it says here, providing a service. Okay. So let's be careful. Most services are not subject to sales tax. Okay. We need to know what kind of service you're providing, but typically you're not going to register for sales tax if you're a service-based only business. Typically, unless you meet one of these small things that are here on this list where Katie's highlighting right now. Okay. Good question though.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, talk about picking the business start date again. Well, let's talk about that. So you do need to pick your business's start date based on when you actually truly start. You mentioned here, Emily, about fiscal year versus calendar year. Let me give you some advice. Almost never is it a good idea to choose a different fiscal year other than a calendar year. Okay. Unless there is some sort of reason that you need to do that for federal purposes. Okay. Because we always follow what you do with the IRS. If you need to use a different fiscal year with the IRS for your personal taxes, they're going to make you fill out an application form for that, and you'll be locked into that from now until forever. Okay. So this just doesn't happen that much. Okay. There's maybe an example I can give you on this to where it would make sense. If you had a seasonal business, it might make sense to do it this way. For instance, Katie and I bring up the example sometimes about, let's say you operate a water park. Okay. So you've got operations basically from springtime all the way to Labor Day, right? Well, maybe it's a good idea to have a fiscal year that ends in September, right? So that you can go ahead and close out your books for that year and start a new tax year. Well, that would make sense. Yeah, sure. But mostly you don't do that. Okay. It gets more complicated and it's unnecessary for what you're trying to do. Okay. And Cyril,
So
window cleaning is not a taxable service. Okay.
what about if he was cleaning or detailing cars?
Why do you bring up stuff, Katie? What is wrong with you?
A car is considered tangible personal property. It's not real property. It's not your home. It's not. A car is tangible personal property. And if you see right here, repair, installation, or cleaning of tangible personal property is a service.
Look at you.
That
See him being
is.
smart like that.
Good job, Katie.
Yes,
Good.
thank you, thank you.
100% and 3 stars for Katie.
I win.
And by the way, Cyril, you can come to my house and clean my windows. We're good. I'll pay you.
Mine are really bad right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if any
This
other
was great.
questions, it was. I'm actually really glad we had a small group, y'all. I think that was pretty cool. Usually our group is really big. I mean, this is, right after Christmas and New Year holiday. Maybe that's why it's small, but usually we've got so many people on here that we have to close down the chat and only open it up during a Q&A portion, but we got to keep it open here and got to hopefully answer your questions pretty directly. Again, if you did not get your question answered, let's go to the very end here. It's like right here. Call us or email us. We'll be happy to take care of you. Maybe you'll get Lance on the phone when you call, right? Don't ask for him specifically, right? We're not allowed to do that. But join us later this month for our Business Tax Basics webinar. Join us every month for our webinars. More knowledge is power. If you're a new business, it's just 1 hour, last Tuesday of the month. Highly recommend that. And let us know your thoughts as you exit this webinar. You will have a quick little survey just to give us any ideas of stuff you want to learn more about or want to have a webinar about, and tell us how we did. Billy, Dan, Lance, any other thoughts for everybody?
except to just say thank you to everybody. I think it's great that you took time out of your busy day to be with us today. And we are super glad to provide all this for you. And like I say, if you see something weird in the mail, you don't understand something, pick up the phone and call us, send us an email. We'll be glad to help you. Unlike some other agencies, we do answer the phone. We really, truly do. Okay.
But if you call us
Wait,
on
on
April 15th, you might wait a while.
As they call it on
True.
April 15th.
True.
We'll answer the phone, but you're going to be on there for a while, for real.
Yeah.
But because that's the way it is every year. But yeah, reach out to us and let us know how we can help you, because that's what we get paid to do, and we want to do it. Okay.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Good luck to you.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.